Admiral Jiwoo Kim stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, watching alien species debate humanity's future, as if humans were not even in the room. The massive dome stretched high above, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Some floated in special atmosphere bubbles. Others sat on platforms designed for their unique body types. All of them looked down on the small human section with barely hidden disgust. The Zephyrian speaker, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, waved a document in the air. "The containment directive must pass today," it announced in its mechanical voice. "The human species has shown dangerous expansion patterns. They must be limited to their home system." Jiwoo felt his jaw clench. 50 years ago, humanity had joined this council with hope. They thought they would be partners in exploring the galaxy. Instead, they had become prisoners in their own solar system. Dr. Minho Park, sitting beside Jiwoo, leaned over and whispered, "The vote count looks bad. Most species will support containment." Ambassador Yuna Lee sat in front of them, her back straight and tense. She had spent decades trying to build relationships with alien diplomats. Now she watched those same aliens vote to cage humanity like wild animals. The Altarian representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree, spoke next. "Humans are too unpredictable. They solve problems in ways we cannot understand. This makes them dangerous to galactic stability." Jiwoo wanted to stand up and shout. How was being good at solving problems a bad thing? But he stayed quiet. Yuna had asked him to let her handle the politics. The voting began. Species after species cast their decision. Green lights meant yes to containment. Red lights meant no. The chamber filled with green as alien after alien voted to trap humanity in the Sol system. During a break in the session, Yuna pulled Jiwoo and Minho aside. "I need to show you something," she said quietly. "Follow me." She led them through the council building's back corridors to her private office. Once inside, she locked the door and activated a privacy shield. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything," Yuna said. Her hand shook as she pulled out a small device. "I've been investigating strange memory gaps in our diplomatic staff. People would return from meetings with alien officials and not remember important details." She activated the device. A hologram appeared showing brain scans. "I had Dr. Sung run secret tests on our people. Look at this." The scans showed small implants in the brain stems of human diplomats, tiny devices that looked like metal spiders. Minho gasped. "Neural implants." "But when were these put in?" "During routine medical checks," Yuna said. "The aliens told us they were health monitors. But they're actually harvesting devices. They're stealing our thoughts, our ideas, our creativity." Jiwoo stared at the scans. "That's why they always seem to know our strategies before we use them." Yuna nodded. "But there's worse news." She pulled out another file. "I hacked into the Council's classified archives. Humans were never supposed to be equal members. We're listed as a test species in something called the Development Protocol." She showed them documents that made Jiwoo's blood run cold. Humanity was being studied like lab rats. The aliens were testing how much pressure they could put on a young species before it broke or fought back. "They've done this before," Yuna continued. "Dozens of species have been through this program. Most were either destroyed or turned into slave races. Only a few ever gained real independence." Minho sat down heavily. "So everything we've built here, all our diplomatic efforts, it's all been fake." "Not fake," Yuna said. "But we've been playing a rigged game from the start." Jiwoo felt anger burning in his chest. He thought about all the human colonies that had been blocked from expansion, all the trade deals that had been denied, all the times human ideas had been dismissed as primitive, only to see aliens use those same ideas later. "What do we do now?" Minho asked. Before Yuna could answer, Jiwoo's communicator buzzed. It was a priority message from Earth Command. He read it quickly, then looked up at his companions. "Earth has made a decision," he said. "All human representatives are being recalled immediately. We're withdrawing from the Galactic Council." Yuna's face went pale. "They can't be serious. This will mean war." "Maybe war is better than slavery," Jiwoo replied. The next day, the council chamber was buzzing with nervous energy. Word had spread that humanity was making some kind of announcement. Most aliens assumed it would be an apology and acceptance of the containment directive. They were wrong. Jiwoo walked to the speaker's platform in his full military dress uniform. The chamber fell silent as he began to speak. "For 50 years, humanity has tried to be good partners in this council," he said. His voice carried clearly through the dome. We have followed your rules, accepted your restrictions, and tried to prove ourselves worthy of respect. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. This was not going as they expected. Today we learned the truth, Jiwoo continued. We are not partners. We are test subjects. You have been harvesting our thoughts, studying our reactions, and treating us like laboratory animals. Shocked whispers filled the chamber. Several alien diplomats tried to object, but Jiwoo kept talking. You call us unpredictable and dangerous because we think differently than you do. You're right. We are different. We don't accept that things must stay the same forever. We believe in growth, change, and freedom. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. So today, humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council. We reject your authority over our species. We will expand to any world we choose. We will trade with whoever accepts us as equals, and we will defend ourselves against anyone who tries to cage us. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The Zephyrian speaker demanded order, but nobody was listening. Jiwoo raised his voice over the chaos. To those species who are also tired of being controlled by your betters, know that humanity will welcome you as true allies. To those who support this corrupt system, know that we will not go quietly into your cage. He turned and walked out of the chamber, followed by Yuna, Minho, and the rest of the human delegation. Behind them, the Galactic Council dissolved into arguments and panic. As they boarded their ships to return to Earth, Yuna asked, "Do you think we did the right thing?" Jiwoo looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were probably already moving to force humanity back into line. We did the only thing we could do, he said. We chose freedom over safety. Now we'll find out what that choice costs us. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them away from the Council and toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the galaxy began to change in ways no one could predict. General Hyun Choi stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, staring at a massive holographic display of the solar system. Red dots showed alien fleets moving toward Earth's outer territories. There were more ships than humanity had ever faced before. How long do we have? He asked his aide. 18 hours until the first wave reaches Mars colony, Captain Do-Hyun Seo replied. The main fleet will be here in 3 days. Hyun nodded grimly. He had been preparing for this moment since becoming Supreme Military Commander 5 years ago. While Earth's diplomats talked peace with the aliens, he had been building weapons. Activate Prometheus Protocol, he ordered. Across the room, dozens of officers began working at their stations. Hidden factories throughout the solar system came online. Secret weapons that had been built in asteroid mines and hidden moon bases powered up for the first time. Captain Do-Hyun checked his tablet. All stealth ships report ready, sir. The new drive systems are working perfectly. For 10 years, humanity had been secretly reverse engineering captured alien technology. But they had not simply copied what they found. Human engineers had improved it, changed it, made it uniquely human. Engineer Bora Nam hurried into the room carrying a small device. General, the quantum communication network is online. We can now coordinate instantly with every human ship and colony, no matter how far away. This was humanity's greatest breakthrough. While aliens still relied on message drones that took days to travel between stars, humans could now talk to each other instantly across any distance. Excellent, Hyun said. Captain Do-Hyun, take your fleet to Mars. Show our alien friends what humans learned while they weren't watching. Do-Hyun saluted and left to board his flagship, the Soul. It was humanity's first true warship, built entirely with human-designed technology. It looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. Instead, it was built for pure function, armored fast, and armed with weapons the aliens had never seen before. The Battle of Mars colony began at dawn on the 4th day after humanity's withdrawal from the Council. The alien fleet arrived expecting to find scared humans hiding behind weak defenses. Instead, they found empty space. The Zephyrian admiral commanding the alien fleet was confused. Where were the human ships? Where were their orbital platforms? Mars colony appeared to be undefended, then the humans attacked. Do-Hyun's ships appeared out of nowhere, using stealth technology that made them invisible until they were ready to strike. But what shocked the aliens most was not their sudden appearance, it was how they fought. Human tactics made no sense. Instead of forming neat battle lines like civilized species, Human ships darted around like angry insects. They used asteroids as cover, shot from behind planets, and coordinated attacks that seemed random but somehow worked perfectly. All ships, execute pattern chaos, Do-hyun ordered over the comm. The human fleet split into dozens of small groups, each attacking from a different direction. The aliens tried to respond, but their rigid command structure could not adapt fast enough. The Soul dove straight through the alien formation, its guns blazing. Other human ships attacked the alien flagship from 6 different angles at once. Within minutes, the supposedly superior alien force was in complete disorder. But the real surprise came when the aliens tried to retreat. Engineer Bora's communication system allowed every human ship to know instantly when the aliens were pulling back. The humans coordinated a perfect pursuit, destroying half the alien fleet as it tried to escape. The few alien ships that made it back to Council space carried shocking reports. The humans had not just won, they had made the fight look easy. On Earth, General Hyun received reports from battles across the solar system. Every alien attack had been defeated. More importantly, humanity had captured several alien ships intact. "What are our casualties?" Hyun asked. "Surprisingly light, sir," his aide reported. "We lost 12 ships and about 300 personnel. The aliens lost over 200 ships and thousands of crew." Hyun was amazed. Human tactics designed around creativity and quick thinking had completely overwhelmed alien strategies based on rigid discipline and predictable patterns. But the real victory came 3 days later when Engineer Bora made another breakthrough. She had been studying the captured alien ships and discovered something incredible. "General, you need to see this," she said excitedly. "The alien computer systems, they can't handle randomness. They're designed to process logical, predictable data. When I fed them truly random information, they crashed." She demonstrated on a captured alien fighter. Within seconds of receiving chaotic input, the ship's entire computer system shut down. "This is their weakness," Bora explained. "Alien minds work differently than ours. They can't really understand randomness or chaos. It actually hurts their ability to think." Hyun smiled for the first time in days. "Can you weaponize this?" "Already working on it, sir." Within weeks, Bora had developed chaos bombs, weapons that didn't destroy alien ships but made them helpless by overloading their computer systems with unpredictable data. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something unexpected was happening. Other species had watched humanity's defiant stand against the Council with growing interest. The Veltar, a species of mining creatures who had been enslaved by the Council for centuries, sent secret messages to Earth. They wanted to know if humans would help them gain freedom too. Similar messages came from a dozen other species, young civilizations that were tired of being controlled by the elder species of the Council. Captain Do-hyun, now promoted to Admiral after his victory at Mars, was given a new mission. He would take a small fleet beyond the solar system for the first time since humanity's withdrawal. His goal was to make contact with these potential allies. But the Council was not done with humanity. They declared humans to be galactic terrorists and put bounties on every human ship. Any species that helped humanity would face punishment. This threat backfired. Instead of scaring species away from humanity, it made them realize that the Council ruled through fear, not justice. The Kethani, a species of traders, were the first to openly defy the Council. They signed trade agreements with Earth and began carrying human goods to other worlds. The Council sent warships to punish the Kethani. The traders called for help and humanity answered. Admiral Do-hyun's fleet arrived at the Kethani homeworld, just as Council forces began their attack. The human ships used their new chaos weapons for the first time in battle. The alien attackers found their ships shutting down one by one, as chaotic data patterns overloaded their computers. Crews that had never experienced true randomness became confused and panicked. Within hours, the entire Council fleet was drifting helplessly in space. News of the victory spread across the galaxy in days. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had protected another species from Council punishment. General Hyun read the reports with satisfaction. "The aliens wanted to contain us in our home system," he told his staff. "Instead, they've given us the entire galaxy to work with." Engineer Bora looked up from her latest project. "Sir, I'm getting communication requests from 17 different species. They all want to discuss mutual defense agreements with humanity." Hyun nodded. "Set up the meetings." It looks like we're going to need allies for what comes next. Outside the war room's windows, Earth's factories worked day and night building new ships. The fleet that had once been designed to defend one solar system was now preparing to defend the freedom of an entire galaxy. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that caging humanity would make humans weak and compliant. Instead, it had made them desperate, creative, and determined to ensure no other species would face the same fate. The war for galactic freedom had begun, and humanity intended to win it. Commander Sujin Han stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching a strange sight through the main view screen. Hundreds of alien ships floated in space around them, but these were not Council warships. These were refugees. The Veltar mining fleet had escaped their Council overseers 3 weeks ago. Now they drifted in empty space between star systems, afraid to go home and unable to find sanctuary anywhere else. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Kiwan Lim, the ship's xenopsychologist. "The Council has made it clear that helping rebel species will be considered an act of war." Sujin smiled grimly. "We're already at war. The question is whether we're going to fight it alone or with friends." She opened a communication channel to the Veltar fleet. Their leader, a massive creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a rock formation, appeared on the screen. "I am Commander Sujin Han, representing Earth and all human colonies," she said. "We received your message asking for help." The Veltar leader, whose name translated roughly to Stone Speaker, leaned forward. "You would risk Council anger to help us?" "The Council is already angry with us," Sujin replied. "But more importantly, we believe every species has the right to be free. If you're willing to fight for that freedom, we're willing to fight beside you." It was humanity's first formal alliance with a rebel species, but it would not be the last. Across the galaxy, Agent Nayan was conducting a much more dangerous mission. She had spent months infiltrating a Council research facility, posing as a maintenance worker. The aliens barely noticed individual humans. To them, all humans looked basically the same. This racist blindness was becoming humanity's greatest advantage in intelligence gathering. Nayan had discovered something that changed everything. Deep in the facility's classified archives, she found records of the Ascension Project, the Council's ultimate plan for dealing with troublesome species. The files were horrifying. Any species that became too advanced, too independent, or too creative was marked for elimination. Not conquest or slavery, complete destruction. Humanity was at the top of the termination list. But the files also revealed something else. The Council's elder species were not the ancient wise beings they pretended to be. They were the survivors of a previous galactic civilization that had destroyed itself in a war between creativity and control. The current Council leaders were the descendants of the Control faction. They had spent millions of years preventing any other species from reaching the level of advancement that had once led to galactic war. Nayan copied the files and began her escape. But alarms started blaring before she could reach her ship. Council security forces surrounded the facility. That was when she discovered another human advantage: the ability to improvise under pressure. While alien minds froze when faced with unexpected situations, Nayan's human brain immediately started generating solutions. She hijacked a maintenance robot, reprogrammed it to create a distraction, and escaped through a waste disposal chute that the aliens had never thought to guard. Her information reached Earth just as Commander Sujin was meeting with representatives from 12 different rebel species. The meeting was taking place on a hidden asteroid base that engineer Bora had helped design. It was built using human engineering principles, functional, flexible, and nearly impossible for alien sensors to detect. "The Council wants us all dead," Sujin announced to the assembled aliens. "Not conquered, not controlled, eliminated completely." The revelation caused panic among some species, but it also had an unexpected effect. It united them. The Kethani traders offered their knowledge of hidden space routes. The Veltar provided raw materials and mining expertise. The Sithara, a species of warrior philosophers, brought their combat skills and strategic thinking. Most importantly, they all brought information about Council weaknesses. Dr. Kiwan worked day and night to understand how different alien minds processed information. He discovered that while each species was intelligent in their own way, They had all been conditioned by millions of years of council control to think in rigid, predictable patterns. It's like they've forgotten how to be truly creative, he explained to Sujin. The council has been selecting against innovation for so long that most species can't even imagine breaking their own rules, but humans could. And once human advisors started working with rebel species, teaching them to think outside their traditional patterns, the results were remarkable. The Veltar, who had always been miners, suddenly started designing weapons. The Cathani, who had focused only on trade, began developing new forms of communication technology. The Sithara started questioning military doctrines that had remained unchanged for centuries. Within months, the Free Species Coalition had grown from 13 founding members to over 50 species, actively fighting council control. The council's response was swift and brutal. They began attacking rebel worlds with planet-killer weapons, trying to terrorize other species back into compliance. This was their second major mistake. Commander Sujin was orbiting the Veltar homeworld when the council dreadnought arrived. The massive ship, larger than most space stations, began charging its primary weapon, a beam that could turn an entire planet into burning rock. All ships, emergency scatter protocol, Sujin ordered. But instead of running, the human ships began a coordinated attack that no alien mind could have conceived. They used the planet itself as a weapon. Engineer Bora had taught the Veltar how to modify their mining equipment into gravity manipulators. As the human fleet kept the dreadnought distracted, Veltar engineers on the planet's surface created localized gravitational anomalies. The dreadnought, designed to fight other spaceships, had no defense against a planet that suddenly started generating its own tractor beams. The massive vessel was pulled into the atmosphere and crashed into the surface before it could fire its planet killer. News of the victory spread instantly through humanity's quantum communication network. Within hours, rebel species across the galaxy knew that even the Council's most powerful weapons could be defeated. The psychological impact was enormous. For the first time in galactic history, species began to believe they could actually win against the Council. Dr. Kiwan noticed another effect. As more species joined the coalition, they began adopting human-style flexible thinking. The rigid mental patterns that had kept them controlled for millennia started breaking down. It's like a virus, he explained to Sujin. Creative thinking spreads from mind to mind. The more species learn to think like humans, the harder they become to control. Agent Nyan, now safely back with the coalition, brought more intelligence from her network of human spies throughout Council space. The elder species are scared, she reported. They're calling emergency sessions, activating ancient weapons, even considering retreating to their core worlds and abandoning the outer galaxy. Sujin studied the tactical displays showing coalition forces spreading across hundreds of star systems. What had started as humanity's desperate fight for freedom had become a galaxy-wide revolution. The Council wanted to contain humanity in one solar system, she said to her staff. Instead, they've helped us spread human ideas to every corner of the galaxy. Commander Sujin opened a communication channel to all coalition ships. Representatives from dozens of species appeared on her screen, some breathing different atmospheres, some existing as energy patterns, some so alien that humans needed special equipment just to perceive them. But they all shared something now that they had never possessed before: the human concept of freedom. Friends and allies, she began. 6 months ago, most of our species had never spoken to each other. We were kept separate, controlled, and afraid. Today, we stand together as equals. The diverse faces on her screen showed expressions of determination that transcended species barriers. The Council calls us rebels and terrorists, Sujin continued. They're right. We are rebelling against tyranny. We are terrorizing those who would keep us enslaved, and we're just getting started. As the meeting ended and coalition ships dispersed to their next missions, Dr. Kiwan made one final observation. You know what the strangest part is? He asked Sujin. We're not just fighting for our own freedom anymore. We're fighting for the freedom of species we've never even met yet. Sujin nodded, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council's elder species were preparing their final gambit. But they would face something they had spent millions of years trying to prevent. A galaxy full of free-thinking species who refused to be controlled. The revolution had begun, with one species breaking free from its cage. Now it had become something much larger, the birth of a truly free galaxy. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun Ko floated in the command center of the massive coalition battleship, Freedom's Dawn, watching tactical displays that showed the largest space battle in galactic history unfolding around him. 300 coalition ships faced off against 500 Council vessels above the burning remains of Nexus Prime, the Council's administrative capital. The war had been raging for 8 months now, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Traditional warfare involved neat formations, predictable strategies, and battles that could last for days as opposing fleets maneuvered for advantage. Human-influenced warfare was chaos. Specialist Yeren status on the Chaos Offensive? Jae-hyun asked. Specialist Yeren Jang looked up from her cyber warfare station, her fingers dancing across controls that managed thousands of simultaneous hacking attempts. Their AI networks are crashing faster than they can rebuild them, sir. The enemy fleet is losing coordination. Yeren had become a legend among coalition forces. Her chaos algorithms could turn the Council's greatest advantage, their perfect computer coordination, into a liability. By feeding alien AI systems truly random data patterns, she could make entire fleets forget how to fight effectively. But the Council had adapted too. They were using more primitive communication methods, relying less on computer assistance, and trying to fight more like humans did. The problem was that they were very bad at it. Colonel Sunho, ground assault report, Jae-hyun requested. Colonel Sunho Bayek's voice crackled over the comm from the planet's surface. We've taken the primary government complex. Council forces are retreating to the underground bunkers, but they're not coordinating well without their AI support. Sunho had revolutionized ground warfare by creating mixed species assault teams. Humans provided tactical creativity, Veltar provided raw strength, Scythara provided combat skills, and Kethani provided infiltration abilities. The combinations were devastating against Council forces trained to fight single-species armies. Admiral, his tactical officer announced, enemy reinforcements incoming. Looks like the Council's 7th Fleet, their best remaining forces. Jae-hyun studied the sensor readings. The 7th Fleet was commanded by Admiral Zix Thera, one of the Council's few remaining competent leaders. Unlike most Council commanders, she had actually studied human tactics and tried to adapt. This would be a real test. All ships, implement Thunder Pattern 7, Jae-hyun ordered. Thunder Pattern 7 was organized chaos at its finest. Coalition. Ships would split into random groups, attack from unpredictable directions, and change tactics every few minutes. It was exhausting for human commanders and nearly impossible for alien minds to follow. But Admiral Zixathara had prepared for this. Instead of trying to coordinate a complex response, she had simplified her fleet's orders to the extreme. Her ships would simply focus on destroying one coalition vessel at a time, ignoring all distractions. For a few hours, it actually worked. The Council forces began inflicting serious damage on coalition ships. Several smaller vessels were destroyed, and even the Freedom's Dawn took heavy damage. Then Specialist Yeren had a breakthrough. Admiral, I found something, she called out excitedly. The enemy AI systems, they're not just processing our chaos algorithms anymore. They're trying to understand them. She showed Jae-hyun her readouts. The Council's computer systems were attempting to analyze human randomness, looking for patterns that didn't exist. What happens if we give them something to analyze? Jae-hyun asked. They'll use more processing power trying to solve an unsolvable puzzle. Yeren replied with a grin. I can create false patterns that look like they might be real but actually lead nowhere. Within minutes, Yeren had deployed what she called infinite loops. Data patterns that seemed to promise understanding but actually trapped alien AIs in endless cycles of analysis. The effect on the Council fleet was immediate. Ships began moving erratically as their computers became obsessed with solving Yeren's puzzles. Weapon systems fired at empty space. Some vessels actually began attacking their own allies by mistake. Admiral Zixathera realized what was happening and tried to shut down all AI assistance, but it was too late. Her fleet's coordination collapsed entirely. All coalition ships, general advance, Jae-hyun ordered. Take prisoners when possible. We're here to liberate, not to massacre. This was another human innovation that shocked alien observers. Previous galactic wars had been fought for total destruction. Coalition forces actually tried to save enemy lives whenever possible. The battle for Nexus Prime ended with the largest surrender in galactic history. Over 200 council ships laid down their arms rather than fight to the death. But the real victory came when coalition forces accessed the council's central archives. The information they found there changed everything. Colonel Sunho led a team of specialists into the deepest levels of the government complex, following maps provided by Veltar miners who had built the tunnels decades earlier. They found a chamber that had been sealed for thousands of years. Inside were the true rulers of the council, the elder species. They were not the wise ancient beings that most of the galaxy believed them to be. They were terrified survivors of a civilization that had destroyed itself through rigid thinking and fear of change. The elders looked almost human, but pale and weak from millennia of hiding underground. When Sunho's team broke into their chamber, the first thing the elders did was surrender. "Please," their leader begged through a translation device. "We know you have come to destroy us. Make it quick." Sunho was confused. "We're not here to destroy you, we're here to end the war." The elder leader stared at him in disbelief. "But you are the chaos bringers. You exist to destroy order. That is why we had to contain you." Dr. Kiwan, who had accompanied the assault team, stepped forward. "No, we exist to be free. There's a difference." Over the next few hours, the truth came out. The elder species had once been explorers and innovators like humanity. But their civilization had split into two factions, those who wanted to keep growing and changing and those who wanted to preserve what they had already achieved. The war between change and stagnation had nearly destroyed their galaxy. The survivors had sworn to prevent it from happening again by controlling the development of all younger species. "But you don't understand," the elder leader explained desperately. "Creative chaos always leads to destruction. We have seen it happen. You've also prevented it from leading to growth," Dr. Kiwan replied gently. "Yes, change can be dangerous, but without it, civilizations die slowly instead of dying quickly." Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun received the report from the surface while dealing with another crisis. Council loyalist forces were still fighting in dozens of star systems, and some had begun using planet-killer weapons against civilian populations. "Admiral," Specialist Yeren reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 more Council fleets, but the 4th and 9th fleets are moving toward Earth with planet killers." This was the Council's final gambit. If they could not control the galaxy, they would try to destroy the source of the rebellion. Jae-hyun made a decision that would be remembered for millennia. Instead of rushing back to defend Earth, he would trust humanity's home defenses and continue liberating Council worlds. "Send word to all coalition forces," he ordered. "Operation Starbreak is approved. We take every remaining Council stronghold simultaneously." Operation Starbreak was the ultimate expression of human tactical thinking. Instead of concentrating forces for one big battle, coalition fleets would attack everywhere at once, spreading Council defenses too thin to be effective. It was a massive gamble. If it failed, the coalition would lose most of its ships and the war would be lost. But it worked perfectly. Within 72 hours, coalition forces had captured or destroyed every major Council military base in the galaxy. The few remaining loyalist fleets found themselves isolated, outnumbered and surrounded. Most chose to surrender rather than die for a lost cause. The fleets heading toward Earth turned back when they realized they had nowhere left to retreat to. On Nexus Prime, Colonel Sunho was having a very different conversation with the elder species leader. "What happens to us now?" the elder asked. "Will you cage us as we caged others?" Sunho thought about it. These beings had spent millions of years terrorizing the galaxy out of fear, but they were also the last remnants of a once great civilization. "That depends," he said finally. "Are you willing to learn a different way of thinking?" The elder looked confused. "You would? Teach us? After what we have done?" "Everyone deserves a chance to change," Sunho replied. Even people who have spent their lives preventing change. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Dawn, Looking out at the ruins of Nexus Prime and the hundreds of ships from dozens of species that now flew together as equals, the war was over. The galaxy was free, but the real work was just beginning. Millions of species would need to learn how to govern themselves. Entire civilizations would need to be rebuilt. And somehow, they would all need to learn to live together without falling into the same trap that had destroyed the elder species. Civilization specialist Yaren approached with a final report. Admiral, we've finished analyzing the Council's archives. They have records of over 1,200 species that were destroyed or enslaved over the past million years. President Yunji Wu stood before the largest gathering in galactic history, looking out at representatives from over 800 different species. The Great Assembly Hall on New Geneva Station had been built specifically for this moment, the founding of the Free Worlds Federation. It had been 2 years since the war ended, and the galaxy was finally ready to try governing itself without the Council's iron control. We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, Yunji began, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber, through translation devices that converted her words into hundreds of different languages. We gather as equals, as partners, as friends who have chosen freedom over security. In the audience, species that had been enemies for millennia sat side by side. Former Council enforcers worked alongside the rebels they had once hunted. Even some of the elder species had chosen to attend, though they mostly stayed quiet and watched with wonder as younger species debated the future. Admiral Min Jae Song, the hero of the final battle at the elder species fortress worlds, sat in the military section reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The transition to peace had not been entirely smooth. Some worlds had fallen into chaos without Council oversight. Others had been invaded by ambitious neighbors. A few had even requested that Council rule be restored because they were afraid of making their own decisions. But most were flourishing. The Veltar had transformed from enslaved miners into master engineers, building incredible structures throughout their system. The Cathani had become the galaxy's communications specialists, connecting distant worlds with trade networks that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. Most surprisingly, many former Council species had discovered creativity they never knew they possessed. Art, music, literature, and scientific innovation were exploding across the galaxy as beings learned to think beyond the narrow patterns the Council had imposed. The question before us today, President Yunji continued, is not whether we will remain free. That choice has already been made. The question is how we will use that freedom. She gestured to a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Green areas showed stable, self-governing worlds. Yellow areas showed regions still recovering from war or Council oppression. Red areas showed places where conflict or chaos still reigned. We have rescued over 300 species from slavery or extinction, she said. We have liberated 12,000 worlds. We have ended a system of oppression that lasted for millions of years. The chamber filled with sounds of approval from dozens of different species. Cheers, clicks, harmonious tones, and stranger expressions of emotion. But our work is not finished. There are still species out there that need help. Still worlds that need rebuilding. Still beings that need to learn what freedom means. Scholar Che Young-yoon sat in the academic section, recording everything for the historical archive she was building. As the galaxy's leading expert on the post-Council period, she had traveled to hundreds of worlds documenting how different species were adapting to freedom. Her findings were remarkable. Species that had been rigidly controlled for millennia were rediscovering aspects of their own cultures that had been suppressed for thousands of generations. Art forms that had been banned were being revived. Scientific theories that had been forbidden were being explored. Most importantly, young beings from different species were learning to work together in ways their ancestors never could have imagined. The Federation we create today, President Eunji announced, will not be like the old Council. We will have no permanent rulers, no superior species, no subjects or servants. She outlined the new system they had spent 2 years developing. Leadership of the Federation would rotate between species every 5 years. Decisions would be made by consensus when possible, by majority vote when necessary. Most importantly, any species could leave the Federation at any time if they chose to. We offer partnership, not dominance, Yunji said. We offer cooperation, not control. The voting began. One by one, species representatives stood to announce their decision. Some spoke in words, others through color changes. a few through complex mathematical equations that translated as yes. The vote was not unanimous. About 50 species chose to remain independent, and the Federation welcomed that choice. But over 700 species voted to join, creating the largest voluntary alliance in galactic history. Admiral Minje approached the podium to address military matters. The Federation Defense Force will exist to protect member worlds and assist non-member species who request help, he announced. We will never be conquerors. We will always be protectors. This was revolutionary thinking. For millions of years, military forces had existed to expand territory and control populations. The Federation military would exist purely to defend freedom. The final speech came from an unexpected source. Elder species leader Velnara, one of the survivors from the Council's underground chambers, walked slowly to the podium. My species spent millions of years trying to prevent change, she said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. We were so afraid of chaos that we chose death over growth. The chamber fell completely silent. Many beings had never heard one of the elder species speak before. You have shown us that chaos and creativity are not the same thing, Velnara continued. Chaos destroys, but creativity builds. We confused the two and nearly destroyed the galaxy because of our fear. She paused, looking around at the diverse faces watching her. We cannot undo the harm we caused, but we can spend whatever time we have left helping to build something better. If the Federation will have us, the elder species would like to contribute our knowledge to this new galaxy you are creating. The approval was immediate and overwhelming. Beings who had every right to hate the elder species instead welcomed them as fellow travelers on the path to a better future. As the assembly concluded, Scholar Cheyong made her final recording. Today marks the end of the post-council period and the beginning of something entirely new, she spoke into her recorder. For the first time in galactic history, species are choosing to work together not because they have to, but because they want to. She looked around at the celebration beginning throughout the station, as representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled freely, sharing food, stories, and ideas. The humans who first broke free from council control could never have imagined this, she continued. They thought they were just fighting for their own freedom. Instead, they started a revolution that transformed the entire galaxy. Outside the station's windows, the stars looked the same as they always had. But everything had changed. Ships from dozens of species traveled freely between worlds. Trade, art, and ideas flowed along routes that had been forbidden for millennia. Young beings grew up learning about dozens of different cultures instead of just their own. President Yunji stood in her private office aboard the station, looking out at the busy space lanes. Tomorrow she would return to Earth, where she would begin the enormous task of coordinating with hundreds of different governments. It would not be easy. There would be disputes, misunderstandings, and conflicts. Some species would try to dominate others. Some worlds would fail in their experiments with freedom. The Federation would face crises that no one could predict. But for the first time in galactic history, these problems would be solved by beings working together as equals rather than subjects obeying masters. Admiral Minje joined her at the window. Any regrets? He asked. Yunji smiled. About breaking away from the council? Never about the war, so much about the future. She watched a formation of ships from 6 different species flying together in perfect harmony. I'm excited to see what happens next. 50 years later, Scholar Cheyong made her final entry in the Galactic History Project. She was old now, but had lived to see the galaxy transform beyond recognition. The Federation had grown to include over 1,000 species. Wars between member worlds had become almost unknown. Art, science, and philosophy flourished as beings learned from each other's different ways of thinking. New species were still being discovered regularly, and all were welcomed as equals rather than subjects. The galaxy's population had doubled as former slave species were freed to grow and develop naturally. Most importantly, no species lived in fear anymore. The Council's system of control through terror had been replaced by cooperation through choice. The human species taught us that freedom is not something you win once and keep forever, Cheyong recorded. It is something you must choose again every day. Today, a galaxy of free beings continues to make that choice. She looked up at the night sky from her home on New Geneva Station. Somewhere out there, human ships were still exploring unknown regions, still making first contact with isolated species, still offering partnership to anyone who wanted it. They called us chaotic and dangerous, she concluded, remembering Admiral Jiwoo Kim's famous words from the first day of humanity's rebellion. They were right, and that's exactly why we won. The recording ended, but the story continued. Across the galaxy, billions of beings lived, worked, loved, and dreamed freely because one species had refused to accept that freedom was too dangerous to be allowed. The universe had not spiraled into chaos when Earth shattered its ties with the Galactic Council.